Hi. Um, Before I begin my talk officially, I want to note that there's a small interactive portion that you can participate in. I made a, no, I didn't. Sorry. I made a button. If you go to krpopp.github.io, you can see the button. The button is for interacting with this talk. While I'm speaking, I ask that you press the button whenever you have a thought. Whenever you agree or disagree or have a question or are reminded of something else that you once heard, I ask that you press the button. But please be thoughtful about when you press the button. Do not press the button lightly. So anyway, my name is Karina Popp. I'm a game designer and developer and teacher and player based in New York City. And despite all this, I love to play buttons. I love to play with buttons. I love to play games. I love to click keys and mice. I like nudging analog sticks and swiping and tapping. And I really, really, really love to push buttons. But I come bearing bad news. Anything billing itself as uniquely interactive because it has some sort of layer of input is lying to you. So let me explain. I made this game, 10 Mississippi. 10 Mississippi is a stop-motion photography game about a person's daily life told over and 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 over again. The GIF you see is the full game. It's just sped up quite a bit so that you can see each scene. When you're playing the actual game, you have to successfully complete a series of predetermined keys that you can see below. As you do that, the photos successfully go through each other to kind of like imply motion. But that's kind of it. There are no choices, and nothing ever changes. So I want to show you a couple of scenes. This is me. I'm shaving my legs. This is my favorite scene in the game because in real life, I hate shaving my legs. It takes way too much time. I'm like bent over. It's very, very awkward. And then in like a couple of days, it's gonna grow back and it's gonna be really prickly. But even though it's such an ordeal, I find watching the shaving cream as it pushes away from the razor really, really satisfying. I like the resistance that each hair puts up until it's cut. I don't know if that's just me, but I can like feel all of the hairs like screaming in anguish. I like the slight sound of my skin scraping against the blades. And I wanted to sort of channel all of that into the basic interaction of 10 Mississippi, but visually, there's just my legs. In a best case scenario in the scene, if the player is really good at moving back and forth between the left or the right arrow key and the down arrow key, they can see like about a photo a little over half a second. In the spectrum of video games, there isn't really a lot going on here. Of all the buttons that one could press, I just chose the down arrow key and the right arrow key. There are so many buttons in the world, let alone the myriad input devices that are now available to us. I could have had like a motion control element. I could have used like the gyroscope in your phone, and as you like slowly bring it down as if you're painting, you shave my leg. I could have like even just used the mouse to drag down, and if you move the mouse just so off of the path, it nicks my ankle, and then I start bleeding everywhere, and then my day is ruined, and it impacts the rest of the game. But I didn't do that. I'm just holding the arrow key down. You just shave my legs. You don't even really see my games that much in the rest of the game. Or this scene. This scene is like a recursive play of hands. You type, I type, I type. All the keyboard keys are enabled, so you just smash away at everything, and it doesn't matter. It's very, very satisfying. But in terms of like the narrative, you can press literally any key on the keyboard, and a predetermined email will compose itself. And like it doesn't care what you typed. And so in terms of the impact you have on the scene, there's very little. It's just sort of like a yes or no situation. And this scene is another one that I like quite a bit, and maybe will help me demonstrate what I'm kind of trying to say. This scene is near the end of the day in the game, when it's night. It is about masturbating. There's like a buzzing noise. There's like some steamy lesbian fanfic on my phone. It's masturbating. I like this scene because I think it's funny, honestly. And there should be more games about going to town on your Hitachi. So you smash the oki, and 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 then suddenly the scene switches and you're watching me read Sound and the Fury. I digress. This all sounds very simple and unsatisfying, but that is kind of what I want to try to experiment with. As a person who is, in theory, interested in creating interactive art and game design generally, I struggle with my field's more manipulative and reductive conventions. I believe insisting on structuring experience exclusively around some real or imagined player who interacts with my game and whose behavior I meant to influence and to push towards some mysterious but utterly logical end is bothersome. So I'm going to go off on another tangent to give a really baseline example of what I mean about game design sort of being always fake choices, which is in Mario. So this is from Super Mario Brothers. This is a really common example of a well-designed introduction level. This is World 1-1. The immediate design of this level, right where you start, is meant to teach the player everything that they need to know about how to play Mario. So we have the Goomba. He's this angry little looking dude. And it's moving towards Mario. Because he looks so angry and unpleasant, we probably want to jump. Thus, Mario jumps, and the player will jump over the Goomba, incidentally hitting the question block above it. When they do, a mushroom will come out. The mushroom will move to the right, will hit a green pipe that's just off screen here, bounce back towards Mario, who can no longer avoid the mushroom, and then will be powered up. In this scenario, the player learns 3 lessons. Mario should avoid Goombas, the question blocks may produce items, and mushrooms power up Mario. And it kind of feels like, oh, a game, I'm going to solve a problem and play it. But the choice is mostly false. You can complete the initial sequence in an alternative way, but the game's design is meant to elicit a specific set of behaviors. And as I said, World 1-1's design is hailed as an elegant solution to a nagging problem in digital games. How can we teach a player to play without them noticing that they've had to think? No one wants to be told what to do, and no one wants to read. But teaching and imparting and rewarding a very specific set of behaviors is kind of weird, especially because it all happens without you knowing. And what I'm saying is this. Insisting that works with input are particularly interactive leads to utilitarian design. For all the agency and the immersion in the world, there's an aggressive lack of nuance in games. Everything is interactive. Books and movies and comics and memes and walking down the street and laying in bed staring at the ceiling. It's all interactive. Games critic Zolani Stewart wrote a great article kind of related to this. It's called Are Video Games Bad at Images?, which I've found myself really inspired by. The article is largely about visuals in games, in that we tend to just use visuals in games to impart information, whether that be how much HP do I have, or even environmental storytelling, in which you walk into a room and you see 6 beer bottles and you think, oh, whoever lives in this room is probably an alcoholic. That's just imparting information. It's not really communicating anything deeper than that. But I think his point still kind of applies to what I'm talking about. One quote in particular stands out to me. He writes, "Indeed, rather than the notion of looking, which suggests a passive act of recognition, we need to insist that we read a photograph not as an image, but as a text." In my games, I want to experiment with reducing the conventional interaction into something smaller, something more evocative, which can scaffold an interpretive space. In the case of 10 Mississippi, the player can't passively look because there's nothing else to do except shave my legs. Or maybe we can break apart imagery. This arm that I have is part of a prototype I've been working on, which is a continuation in these experiments. The prototype is like self-portraiture via vivisection, but I really want to push that idea of sort of interpretation into a more corporal realm, from looking with, as in 10 Mississippi, to looking at. As a piece of communication, I've kind of always felt that 10 Mississippi was pretty limited, so I wanted to extend my experiments into something more substantial. But much like with 10 Mississippi, this prototype is mundane. It's always about how I want to be seen, but I only want you to see what I choose to let you see. And I only want you to see what you know you're going to see. We're always already interacting in life, and I just want 10 Mississippi and my work to be a continuation of that. And so I want to return to the button. As a creator of so-called interactive digital media, of games, I believe framing my field as uniquely interactive is myopic, reducing the interpretive-oriented interaction of games. Through making games such as 10 Mississippi, I want to force so-called players to reckon not with a pre-designed play space, bent on eliciting a certain set of emotions, learning goals, or worst of all, empathy, but I want to reckon with a game as a text. I cannot account for whether or not you actually hit the button today. I can't account for what you thought while you hit the button, or if you were just mindlessly hitting, or if you even opened up the page at all. Maybe using your chosen device to press the button distracted you and you ended up scrolling through Twitter instead. I don't know. Ultimately, pressing the button is meaningless. This is where you can find me, and thank you.